Ladies and gentlemen, your Texas State Director for American Atheists, please welcome to the stage Aaron Ra.
Damn, it's a big room. I'm glad that I can serve as Texas State Director of American Atheists on the occasion of our 50th anniversary convention, not just because I proudly serve in that capacity, but also because I happen to be 50 myself. When Madalyn Murray O'Hair founded this organization just a couple of weeks after her landmark court decision, I was 8 months old. I wasn't always in Texas. We moved around quite a lot when I was a kid. I bounced around from rural communities to sprawling urban centers to remote wilderness, including some isolated locations out in the Arizona desert and in the Alaskan bush. But wherever I lived, I always seemed to be immersed in a exclusively religious community, mostly Mormon, where I was taught that the existence of God and Jesus as separate people were a matter of conclusively proven scientific fact. I didn't even know it was possible to question that, and how could I come to doubt anything that everybody I'd ever met believed so confidently? I knew that atheists existed, but I was told that they believe in God too, they just reject his authority because they hate him. Or I was told that atheists believe in nothing, which is, I guess, what makes them kind of like Zen Buddhists, and when they think that life is an illusion. And obviously I didn't know what faith was. A YouTuber named Bionic Dance has recently invented a word that I love, and I intend to wear it. She says that an apistivist is someone who is without faith. Not just somebody that doesn't believe in God, but somebody who has no beliefs that are not indicated by evidence. Now, that makes sense to me. As a child of my entire life, I thought that everybody believed whatever you do for a reason. And everything I believed was based on my understanding of the evidence. Now, I had heard lots of claims of evidence, evidence of God, evidence of the Bible and of the Book of Mormon, but also of souls, astral projection, time-traveling astronauts, extraterrestrial visitors, the psychic power of animals, pyramid power, the sacred shroud of Turin, and a number of other things that turned out to be urban legends. So when I examined my own beliefs, I came to discover that many of these things were not actually evident, and consequently I was forced to change my mind, even when I didn't want to. But when I was a small child, living in Los Angeles in the late 60s, early 70s, I remember hearing a lot of complaints against Madalyn Murray O'Hair. And so I asked, why is this woman called the most hated woman in America? And just to put that in perspective, when and where I lived, my mother and I, had actually met the Manson family before their mass murders became international news. And we had just recently seen 3 of these women again downtown in Los Angeles, out in front of the courthouse, protesting the trial of Charles Manson with bloody X's carved in their now shaven foreheads. And now think about these women, and while they're protesting the trial, of course other people are protesting them. They're protesting their very existence. These are hated women, and justifiably so. So how do they relate to the most hated woman in America? I asked, what kind of despicable criminal bitch do you have to be, and what sort of heinous atrocities do you have to commit to be worthy of that title? And I asked my mom. She said, she took prayer out of school. I wrestled with that for a bit. I tried to put that in perspective. And I thought, well, first of all, if that's true, so what? I mean, you're there to study, not to pray, so why is that bad? And then secondly, and more importantly, I knew that I could still pray in school. I could pray in secret, just like the Bible tells you that you're supposed to. And nobody could stop me, right? But I also knew that I could clasp my hands and pray right out in the open in front of everybody, and no one would stop me. And why should they? I mean, as long as I'm paying attention to the lesson and I'm not disrupting the class, why would anyone care? And the reason I have to explain this is because not a month ago, some woman on Facebook told me that children are legally prohibited from praying in school, even if they want to. And my mother had eventually explained to me that children can actually pray in school. It's just that the teachers can't make them do it anymore. They can pray on their own when they want to, but the teachers can't force them to do it, and the teachers can't lead them to do it. And that's the way it should be, because it made sense to me. I know that people in my age group may remember after that trial, there were some schools that were still doing this as a matter of principle, regardless of the law. And so they may have had you praying in classrooms anyway. But I never saw the justification of that. Teachers had no business leading children in prayer, and I was thinking this as, I considered myself a Christian when I was a small child. So, of course, we're concerned that the culture encourages willful self-delusion, so that children listen to the voices in their own head until they can't distinguish reality from fantasy, and where we can't distinguish normal neuroses from people who actually need psychiatric help. But apart from that, nobody cares if your kid talks to himself, regardless who he pretends to be talking to. So this woman on Facebook that told me all this, I eventually had to tell her who I was and tell her she was full of shit. The atheists really don't care if they pray in school. The issue is not whether children wish upon a star in the name of their imaginary friend. The problem is that before cases like Madalyn Murray O'Hare's, these children didn't have a choice. Her case challenged a Pennsylvania law wherein public schools were supposed to start every day with a reading of 10 Bible verses. And it didn't make any difference if you were Jewish or Hindu or Muslim or Sikh. You had to listen to 10 Bible verses from a King James Bible reading read over the loudspeaker every single morning, or the teacher would force the children to recite these lines themselves, in unison, reverently. Imagine the sound of children's voices chanting anything in unison. If you want to make a cheap horror movie and you don't want to pay for a sufficiently creepy background music score, you could use that sound. But now add any 10 sequential lines from the Bible, and how much worse does it get? Because the Bible is a mess of inappropriate behaviors that would not be moral, legal, ethical, sane, or humane according to modern standards of any nation on earth. And now imagine that you are an imprintable child being forced to chant this Orwellian mantra every single day. Despite yours and your parents' objections, regardless what your religious perspective is or might have been, had you not been subject to government-enforced conformity and been allowed free will to make up your own mind. Now, non-Christian kids could opt out of the reading, but they wouldn't, because they would be legally segregated if they did, and ultimately ostracized, being made the focus of intolerant peers. Teachers had no choice in the matter either, because the law required that they be fired for non-compliance. And all this came to a head in the summer of '62, when students were expected to read the following state-authored prayer. And as I read this, I want you to imagine that you are children in a classroom back in that day, and they're expected to stand and recite this with your classmates. And remember that although the prayer itself is short, and most people would think it not offensive, remember that the law requires that you be reverent when you read this. Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessings upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our country. It isn't just that the law requires that you be reverent. You must also remember that if a lie is repeated often enough, people will believe it, And this is especially true when you can condition the people to repeat the lie themselves. And there's, of course, only one reason why anyone would want to force other people's children into this ritual recital of reverence. Is because religion is make-believe. It is literally make-believe. That's their mission. It is easier to maintain your own delusion the more other people believe it too. And that's why they want to impose their mythology onto everyone else however they can. And it is easier to deceive those who are too young, naive, emotional, or dependent to have any defenses or to know any better. And that's why they target sequestered, impressionable school children. Now, at some point, I expect that Christians may see this speech on video, and they may not understand why we consider this a matter of such concern. And to those, I would say, imagine your children are attending classes in a theocracy dedicated to some other religion with a foreign god teaching different scriptures as though they were a matter of historic fact, and under circumstances wherein it is illegal to question the doctrine. Because if right-wing factions get their way, that hypothetical situation may be an imminent eventuality. Islam is the fastest growing religion on earth, has been for decades, while Christianity is in a state of relative decline. The math isn't that hard to work out. Depending on whether you consider Catholics to be Christian, Islam may already be the world's dominant religion. They certainly mean to be. So Christians listening to this, think about this. The more power our government allows your religion to have over others now, the easier it will be for the next religion to step in and seize power over you. That's why the Supreme Court, or that's one of the reasons why the Supreme Court deemed it unconstitutional for the state to officially impose or legally prohibit religious belief. And people of faith of all denominations should be as grateful to Madalyn Murray O'Hair as we rational people are. Thank you, Madalyn. Now, while she founded this organization as the most hated woman in America, I'm now going to call onto stage the current president of American Atheists, who is striving very hard to be equally hated in his own right. As you've seen by the billboards that you have along our Texas highways, where normally these are reserved for hate-mongering religiotards. And he's somewhat become the new face of atheism in that he is now an internet meme. And is he even here? Hey, Dave! David Silverman, president of American Atheists.
So most of you don't have Bibles in your rooms because they've asked for it? If you do still have one, it's a mistake. They tried very hard. Please do not throw your Bibles over the center atrium. That's a bad thing to do. Just put it outside your room and they'll take it away. They're going way out of their way to show respect for us, and we really appreciate it. So, 50 years. 50 years. Let's get a little count here. Raise your hand if this is your first atheist event ever. Rock and roll. Welcome. Welcome. I remember my first atheist event ever, and I made friends on that day that are in this room, and I hope you who are new to the movement take some time to really socialize and meet other people, because the people in this room are the greatest people there are. Now, let's try the other side. Raise your hand if you've been in the movement for more than 20 years. See that? A lot of people call us the new atheists. There's nothing new about atheism. In fact, we were first. So I'm going to talk about moving the movement and proving it. And I had a lot of thoughts when I was starting up with this presentation, and I'm going to make a couple of really important points, and I'm going to try and keep this brief, and probably I'm going to fail. So let's start out with a little bit of, well, what we're going to be talking about today. Apparently, this is, I think Mark asked me how we were doing with the other organizations. This wonderful little meme, this dyslexic atheists are wrong, there is a dog. That's courtesy of Roy Specker, Executive Director of the American Humanist Association. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. Those of you who are new here need to know what we're doing and why. Because, well, we get results. And we're going to be talking about the results, the numbers, and the trends. This is going to be a progress report. This is going to be a how we're doing. And then I'm going to ask you for money, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. There's Bill. The tide goes in, the tide goes out, tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that. So a few years ago, Phil Plait gave a speech called Don't Be a Dick. And he said in his speech, how many of you became a skeptic because someone got in your face screaming and called you an idiot, brain damaged, and a retard? That's... Good old Bill called me insane, personally, face to face. He also called me a fascist. Yes, and said we're pushing our views on them. I'll say that again. We're pushing our views on the Christians. That's what we're being blamed for. And a good old Kent Ham said that I rant, they're raving and ranting and name-calling. I will admit to the ranting and raving, but not the name-calling. Because in the end, we don't do that. We don't do that. We're hardline atheists, but we don't do this. I've been married to a theist for 22 years because in 22 years, I've never called my wife a retard. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what firebrand atheism is, and I'm using the word firebrand atheism. Is Greta here? Greta, Christina, are you here? No, she's sleeping in. Firebrand atheism is really, as far as I'm concerned, has 5 points. Point number 1, tell the truth. Tell the truth. This isn't hard. Tell the truth, but the emphasis is on the tell. The emphasis is on telling as opposed to not telling, as opposed to silence. We tell the truth. God is a myth. Of course he is. Religion is a lie. We know this. And respect is earned. And believing something that's not respectable isn't respectful in and of itself. Is there anything untruthful about any of that? No. That's the first thing. Tell the truth and tell it loud. Point 2, don't feign respect for the unrespectable. You see point 1. Okay, we don't have to say, oh, I respect your beliefs, if we don't. I have a friend, a Muslim friend, and he told me not too long ago, he said, you know what, Dave, I got to tell you, I respect your position. And I said, oh yeah, and he says, yeah, you're logical and reasonable and you're passionate and you make sense. I respect your position. And now I think you really should respect mine. No. You respect my position because my position is respectable. You believe in an invisible man in the sky. I like you, I respect you as a person, but your belief is silly and not warranting of respect. This is the truth. Point 3, don't accept inequality or privilege as acceptable, even if it is the norm. See point 2, see point 1. Folks, we know that Christianity and religion has a privilege in this state. We know that they're trying to keep it. That's what this fight is about. That's what we're fighting, and we're not going to accept it. We're not going to accept second-class citizenry. No, that's never going to happen. It's been this way for hundreds of years, thousands of years if you go global, and you know what? We're done with that. It's time for atheists to be equal in this country. Point 4, if someone claims to be offended by the truth, if someone claims to be offended by the truth, it's because they're used to the privilege and the social superiority and actually fear being equal. They actually fear just being equal. They're equalophobes. They're afraid of equality. They don't want it. They want nothing to do with it. They want their privilege. They want their superiority. And you know what? We don't have to take that. I'm offended is not your signal to stop talking. I'm offended, your honesty offends me, your disrespect for my belief offends me, is not our reason to shut up. It's our reason to speak a little louder and make sure they know why we're not talking about them personally. It's important that people understand we are not talking about the people when we bash religion. We're talking about the religion itself. And people need to understand that and not take it personally. And if they do take it personally, it's their problem. Number 5. If someone tries to limit freedom using religion, see points 1 to 4, only louder. This wonderful picture that I have up of Muhammad, the pedophile prophet, who I often call Muhammad the pedophile prophet. Why? Because they tell us, because it's the truth, but also because they tell us not to. Right? We didn't have Draw Muhammad Day before they told us we couldn't draw Muhammad. That didn't exist. We're not doing this. American Atheists doesn't sponsor things like Draw Muhammad Day to piss off the Muslims. We do it because they pissed us off by trying to enforce their religious laws on us. In this country, we have a freedom, and you can observe your religious freedom any way you see fit. But as soon as you say, I'm going to say that, as soon as you say, you have to obey my religious laws, that's when we say no. That's when we actively disobey. If they say don't say that, we say it loud. If they say don't write that, we write it. Because they don't have any authority over us, and they never will. So that's firebrand atheism in its points. But does it work? Does it work? Let's look at let's find out. Now, what you're seeing here is a blue line and red lines. Now, let me tell you what you're looking at. The blue line is the number of times the word atheist is searched in Google. The red lines show you the floor. So the peaks of the blue line show you where something happens in the press. And people say, oh, let's look up the atheist thing that happened in the press. And the red line shows you how many times, and the red line is the important part, how many times people are searching for atheists absent of a press hit. That's the floor. And as you can see, starting back here, I can't see my laser. My laser's gone. So starting over on the left-hand side, you can see that all the peaks, they go down to this floor, and then in December of '06, something happens. And the floor is actually raised. There's a big press hit, and then it never goes back down to the old floor. Something happened there to bring atheists more into the norm of society. Something happened right there that made some change in society that made atheists more normal. What was it? Well, we can speculate. I can speculate that that's when the God Delusion came out, that's when Letter to a Christian Nation came out, that's when God Is Not Great came out, and a whole bunch of people read, and a whole bunch of people thought, and now people are searching for the word atheist just a little bit more. Not bad. So then you can see those little peaks where I have Xmas notified. There's always a peak in atheist for Christmas. That's the Bill O'Reilly effect. So Christmas '07 comes along, that's that big peak that you see there, and then of course it goes back down to the floor. What happens next? Well, another thing happens. That's when a big press hit, and you can see that another floor is established, right? You can see that very clearly. The big press hit, Christmas of '08, that is when the Richard Dawkins bus ads went up in England. Don't believe it, stop worrying and have a nice life, or something like that. It was a great ad. It's also a couple lawsuits that were filed in that month. So the spike went up, and it never went down again. The new floor was established. And that's that's important, because every time you could see that that means that atheists became a little more normal. And that last bit over there, that last peak, is right about September rather, of '09, right? Of 10, September of 10. That's that last peak there. September of 10, two things happened. Number one, Pew Research came out with the statement that religious people know less about religion than atheists. And the second thing that happened in September of 10 was that I was elected president of American Atheists. And so let's see what happened. Oh! Why look! This rise that you see, this new floor up at the top, that rise is twice as big as the other two rises. It's that size of a jump. That jump is huge compared to the other two. It's as big as the other two combined. What happened? What happened to all those press hits that made atheism more normal? Well, we can look, and you can just do a little search. That first big hit, Christmas of 2010, you know it's a myth. Notice that that is the first time since 2000, in the data that we have, that's the first time that Christmas wasn't a spike, that it didn't go down, the usage didn't go down after Christmas. Why not? Well, because that's when you know they're all scams, and the famous Bill O'Reilly incident happened. What about the next one? That coincides with You Know There Is No God, We Know You're Right, the National Convention of American Atheists in Des Moines, Iowa. What happened next? Oh, that coincides with You Know It's Nonsense, our billboard war against the rapture people. Then what happened? Oh, there's one, the 9/11 Cross lawsuit. Oh, what happened next? Christmas 11, tell your family you don't believe in God, they just might agree. The next peak, the Arabic and Hebrew billboards that we put up in New York and New Jersey. The next one, number one, the Reason Rally. The next one, the Christian and Mormon billboards that we put up in advance of one of the debates. And finally, the Christmas Times Square billboard. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to show you here. You see that there's a star after the Christian and Mormon billboard, there's a star after the 9/11 lawsuit, and there's a star against You Know They're All Scams. That's because in those months, nothing else happened in atheism. The only thing that happened in atheism were those things. And that shows you the magnitude of what we're doing alone versus what we're doing together. For instance, if you look at the last two bumps, the Christian and Mormon billboard is exactly the same height as the Times Square billboard, which brings into question, in Times Square, in Christmas, there's a whole bunch of people doing a whole bunch of things on Atheist, but it appears that they're not having an incremental effect because we had the same size press hit off of our billboard campaign alone. Now, that's one set of data, and it's very, very interesting. But it's too early to say cause and effect. It's too early to say cause and effect because we haven't proven that there's an actual linkage between our activity and the rise in atheist normalcy. So I did a little more digging, and I came up with this. This is searches on the words American atheist. And you can see it's pretty level until around September of 2010. And, and that's first big spike right there. That first big spike is it's a myth. And clearly, this is not going to happen for any other reason other than our work. Clearly, the spikes in American atheists is not going to happen without American atheist activity. How well does this line up with the use of the word atheist? Well, we'll take the same line and we'll line them up. Oh, look. They line up perfectly, almost perfectly. Searches for American atheists, which only come from American atheist activity, match peaks and upticks for atheists almost perfectly. All right, that's pretty interesting data. But some people might say, Dave, the rise in the use of the word atheist is just because we're growing as a movement. Well, that's okay. That's an interesting idea. If that were the case, then we would see similar rises in other words along the same pattern. We don't. What we have here is agnostic, humanist, secular, and atheist on the same chart, on the same period, on the same scale. And as you can see, they're all clumped together until around September of 2010. But what you can see here is that these other labels, these other searches, are not affected at all. The growth here is in the word atheist. What we can see is that other labels are searched less frequently and are roughly in either unchanged or decline. Did you hear that, Tom? Humanism's in decline, my friend. I jab, but we love each other. But look at this. This is a clear breakaway that seems clearly caused. So let's put this all together. Only atheist is growing, and dramatically so since 2010, and only atheist has been affected. So whatever affected atheist only affected atheist. It didn't affect humanist. It didn't affect secular. It didn't affect non-theist. It only affected atheist. Now here's an interesting chart. On this chart, you've got two charts. You've got two pieces. On the right side is a pole, and on the left side is a pole. But because I didn't have intermediate data for the right side, I couldn't put it on the same chart. The right side, since atheists, not nuns, not unbelievers, atheists have grown from 1% to 5% between 2005 and 2012. That's good. And I wish I could rely on that data, but I can't because I don't have intermediate data. I wish I could show you the data, but I don't have intermediate data. What I do have intermediate data on is the Pew Research, which shows a very interesting trend. It shows that the number of people who call themselves atheists, the number of atheists who call themselves atheists has increased starting in 2011. It has increased. Now, how does that relate to the number of times the word atheist is searched? Well, like that. Like that, folks. A clear trend showing that the use of the word atheist as a self-identifier has increased at the same time frame and at the same rate as people calling themselves atheists and people using the word atheist. People searching for the word atheist. People searching for the word atheist is clearly affected by American atheist activity. Also, use of agnostic seems to go up with the word atheist. Use of agnostic, there is a blip there, so I can't say that it's perfect, at least not as perfect as the atheist word. But use of agnostic seems to be going up along with atheist. Interestingly enough, searches on agnostic didn't go up. Use of the word agnostic went up in line with use of the word atheist, which supports the idea that we are not only reaching atheists, but we're reaching fence sitters who are using atheist as a term, a stepping stone term. Is that proof positive? No. But when you look at the correlation between the number of ads that we put up, the activity that we put up, and the use of the word atheist, when you show the fact that use of the word atheist has leapt above use of all the other identifiers, when you show that that links to people who call themselves atheists, well, correlation is not causation, ladies and gentlemen, but that's a lot of correlation. And here's the big part. If everything we're doing is exactly correct, this is exactly what we would expect to see. This is exactly what we would expect to see, isn't it? We would expect to see atheist use going up. We would expect to see a direct correlation between our work and atheist use going up. And we would expect to see a direct relational correlation between use of the word atheist and our prime goal, people calling themselves atheists. We would expect to see that if we were perfect, if we were right. And that's exactly what we see now. The data is very supportive. And I love data. Don't you love data? I love data. American Atheists ads, interviews, and other activism directly correlates not only to spikes in publicity for American atheists, clearly, but also for the general use of the word atheist and general searches for the word atheist. That correlates to people calling themselves atheists in the same time frame at the same rate increase. That also correlates to people calling themselves agnostics, again, in the same time frame. All of it correlates to a decrease in bigotry, because last year there were 2 polls from Gallup that said more than half of us would vote for atheists. Atheists, not unbelievers, not nuns, atheists, which means we are demonizing the word. We are succeeding. Now, like I said, it all passes the smell test. In fact, it's part of the plan. This has been the plan, hasn't it? I got up on stage 2 years ago and I laid this out, and it appears to be working. Now, we can be skeptical, and we should be, but we should not deny the preponderance of the evidence, and we should not deny where the preponderance of the evidence leads us. That gap is us. That increase in people calling themselves atheists over the regular increase is our activity. You, me, the staff, the volunteers. That's us. It went from it would have been 2.1%. It is now 2.4% people, and this is just the Pew. Remember, the other survey had us at 5%. So just keep that in mind. According to Pew, the impact of American atheists, specifically American atheist activity, has resulted in about 1 million people calling themselves atheists. And that's the big picture, isn't it? So we're also helping the rest of the movement. We're helping everybody by what we're doing, by demonizing the whole movement, by increasing awareness of our problems. That's why people are more willing to vote for an atheist, even though we're mean, because they're respecting us, because they're understanding our position, because we're telling the truth. And frankly, we're the only ones telling the truth. We are producing a decrease in bigotry nationwide, and we are the only ones who highlight religion's faults. Now, I'm not saying that the soft side doesn't talk about the bad part of religion, but we highlight it. We talk about it. That's what makes us firebrands. That's what makes us truth tellers. We highlight the problems in religion. We do the dirty work. And we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the movement. Like I was saying during our members meeting, everybody has a place in the movement. We're doing the dirty work, and we are benefiting the good kind of atheist. Oh, all of a sudden, you've got these bad atheists over here putting up these nasty billboards, and they're a good atheist. You know, that billboard, that was Dump the Myth in Times Square. Oh, that was great. Dump the Myth in Times Square over Christmas, New Year's. That's a good billboard. And CNN put out this huge article about the rift in atheism. Ooh. And it said, look at the bad atheists. The bad atheists over here. They're putting up this big billboard in Times Square calling Jesus a myth. But look at the good atheists over here. And then they went into the Secular Student Alliance and Harvard Humanists and the American Humanist Association. And they said, oh, look, they're having parties, and they're doing nice things, and they're being friendly. And all of a sudden, they're the good kind of atheists, we're the bad kind of atheists. And what does that mean? That means there's a good kind of atheist. And just going back, tie goes in, tie goes out. So that's why I say that the diplomats of this movement are the beneficiaries of the firebrands. Okay? They benefit from us. So not only do we benefit ourselves, not only do we benefit our country, but we benefit the entire movement by being who and what we proudly are. All right, back to Bill. Christianity is not a religion, it's a philosophy. Now, that was a very telling thing to say. Why did he say that? How many people saw that clip? Okay, so everybody saw that clip. So why did he say that? Well, because if Christianity is a religion, it can't be treated unfairly. If you watch the clip, you'll see where he's going. If Christianity is a religion, the government can't give it a special boost. So if Christianity is a philosophy, it makes no difference if Christianity is the official philosophy of the United States of America. Why is he doing that? He's trying to protect his privilege. He's trying to protect Christian privilege, and they know they can't do it morally. They know they can't do it ethically. So they're changing the definition of the word religion in order to get past it. This is what we're fighting. This is a very clear signal on what we're fighting. Christianity is very much a religion, and people need to understand that equality is good. And that's the message that we need to get out. This is your American atheists, and this is why you need to take the credit. Everything we do stops dead without you. Everything, every billboard we put up, every lawsuit we file, stops dead without your membership and without your donations. Everything we're doing is with you. So when we say American Atheists is doing this success, is succeeding in changing the country, which we clearly are, I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about just me and my staff. I'm talking about the entire membership and donor base of American Atheists who make it all possible. This is us. changing the country. And this is something of which we should all be proud. Yes. We're also winning because our supporters have our backs online. Our supporters say, stop saying that American Atheists is doing some sort of evil or is hurting the movement. That's crap. We're helping, and we're doing better than anybody thinks. But also offline, in person. In person. If you're an outed atheist, that's good. Now is the time to become an outed firebrand atheist. Now is the time. And third, we are winning because we are activists. We challenge the privilege, and we challenge equalophobia. We stare it down. We organize and participate in protests and campaigns, and that's Blair's head. And we promote movement unity. And man, I can't stress enough promoting movement unity. If you see somebody who's just taking potshots at other atheists for the fun of taking potshots at other atheists, vocally stop that person from doing so. We have real enemies. We have real enemies and we have real problems, and one of the things that we cannot waste our time on is beating each other up over nothing. Yes, debate. Yes, discuss. But if you see somebody who's just trashing another atheist because it's fun, it's time to step up and stop that crap. Lastly, oh, and one more thing. Oh, and one more thing. My book is coming out in December. It's called I, Atheist. It is a hardliner's defense of hardline atheism, and it sounds like it's going to be pretty good. So please keep that on your radar screen. All right, so in conclusion, the summary. Isn't that a beautiful picture? 30,000 atheists in one place. In summary, 20 years ago, or 2 years ago, I said we're going to do it in 20 years, and that means we got 18 years left. 18 years and counting. What have we done so far? Well, we organized and presented at the Reason Rally. Now, the Reason Rally was an equal partnership of everybody involved, but I think it's very fair to say that it wouldn't have happened without American Atheists, and we need to take a little credit for that. We had a win at the Supreme Court. The cross is actually Christian. And we have 4 other important lawsuits going on. We also are the voice of atheism, measurably impacting the country and coaxing atheists out of the closet. And we are a force for movement unity. We are the ones who are trying to work with other organizations, and they're working with us too, and they're working with each other. This is a force to be reckoned with, and it's getting stronger and stronger every day, and I kind of love it. Now, we are opening an office in Washington, D.C., because it's time for us to start doing public policy. It's time for hardline atheists to have a voice in Washington, D.C. In fact, I think it's long overdue. We have 4 important and winnable lawsuits. 4 important and winnable lawsuits. Please attend Edwin Kagan's talk, including suing the IRS. We kind of think churches should pay taxes. And finally, we have 2 donor matches going on this year, folks. 2 donor matches. Every dollar that you donate to our advertising fund is matched, and every dollar that you donate to our IRS Equality Fund is matched. The IRS Equality case isn't actually about taxing churches. It's about treating churches equally to everyone else, every other nonprofit organization. It is a fundamental issue facing America today, and your donations to that fund are doubled. Lastly, I can't read it. More coordinated efforts, including coordinated lawsuits, coordinated conventions, coordinated integration and presentation. we have to put together a presentation. We have to make sure that when somebody Googles atheist, they get a list. They get a diagram. They understand the differences between the organizations so they can find the place that most suits them, so that they can be happy, so that they'll stay and not just give us 1 year's donation, but actually stay with the movement. And we're going to have lots and lots of continual campaigns to challenge inequality and privilege. And folks, I want to tell you that the data that we're seeing shows that we are winning. The data that we are seeing shows that we, all of us, are changing that vicious circle. That first vicious circle where the bigotry kept the atheist in the closet, which facilitated ignorance, which facilitated bigotry. That vicious circle has been changed to people coming out of the closet and de-bigoting America and increasing awareness and then making it easier for more people to come out of the closet. You can see it happening. And that's because we're doing it. That's because not only are we doing it, but we're positively kicking ass. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Silverman!
Thank you so much.
Don't leave the stage yet, because I'm wondering if you're as curious as I am.
Yeah?
Is there anybody in this room who was in this hotel 21 years ago to the day for the 1992 American Atheist Convention? That is freaking amazing right there. Look at all those people. That's freaking awesome. That's freaking awesome.
That's cool.
Thank you, David Silverman. One more time for David.